I remember that moment as vividly as if it were unfolding before me now. One instant I was surrounded by chaos, machines beeping, voices shouting, the air thick with urgency. And then, without warning, everything went silent. The noise dissolved, the tension vanished, and I felt myself slipping away as though a gentle current was pulling me out of the noise of the world into something unspeakably still. There was no fear, no confusion, only an indescribable calm that seemed to sink into the deepest part of my being. I didn't know where I was, but I knew with absolute certainty I was no longer in the same world. In that sacred stillness, a realization began to dawn within me. I was not alone. It was as if light itself began to take form around me. Not the kind of light that blinds, but one that embraces. It carried warmth, peace, and something infinitely greater than anything I had ever felt on earth. It was alive. It was love. Living, breathing, unconditional love. In that moment, every pain, every regret, every hidden sin I had ever carried began to lose its weight. The fear of death itself was gone. Because there I understood death wasn't an ending. It was a doorway, and then I knew I was standing before Jesus. His presence wasn't what I had imagined through paintings or sermons. It wasn't distant, formal, or unreachable. It was deeply personal. He looked at me, not at my record, not at my failures or successes, but straight into me. His eyes held a truth so pure that I felt completely exposed, yet completely accepted at the same time. There was no accusation, only understanding. No rejection, only grace. I didn't hear his voice with my ears, yet I felt every word within my spirit. Waves of light and meaning flowing through me. He didn't need to ask who I was. He already knew everything. And still, he smiled. That smile carried forgiveness deeper than I had ever imagined possible. I remember thinking, if this is love, then I never truly knew love before. Then he began to show me my life. Not to shame me, but to reveal truth. I saw myself preaching, praying, striving, yet so often running on empty inside. I saw how I had filled the silence of my soul with bitterness, pride, and secret struggles I had never dared confess. And yet, in every one of those moments, Jesus had been there. Not waiting with anger, but with longing. Longing for me to look back at him. There was a holy transparency in that encounter. I couldn't hide, and I didn't want to. His love made hiding both impossible and unnecessary. I realized then what he desired wasn't my perfection. It was my surrender. In that eternal stillness, time didn't exist, but truth did. Every thought, every intention of my heart stood open before him, and still his love held me steady. Then I felt his hand, not a human touch, but peace itself resting upon my soul. In that embrace, I knew I was safe, fully known, fully loved. For the first time I understood, dying was not the end of life. It was the beginning of seeing clearly. And in that clarity, I heard him say softly, "Now I must show you something." When he spoke, it wasn't with a sound the ears could hear. It was a voice that resonated inside me like living light. Every word carried both truth and tenderness. I didn't feel interrogated or judged. I felt like a beloved child, spoken to by a father who had waited an eternity for this moment. There was no fear, only the overwhelming realization that I was completely seen and still completely loved. His eyes seemed to hold eternity itself, and under that gaze, layers of pride, insecurity, masks, and defenses began to fall away. His presence made pretending impossible. I tried to speak, but no words came. My thoughts were exposed before him, and he understood them all before I could even shape a sentence. I had spent my whole life preaching about grace, but in that moment, I was experiencing it in its purest form. Grace wasn't a doctrine or a verse anymore. It was a person, standing before me. What struck me most was how Jesus didn't begin with rebuke. He began with love. He reminded me of moments where I had shown kindness, moments when I had wept for others, times when I had chosen forgiveness over resentment. It was as if he wanted me to see he had noticed it all. The small acts, the unseen mercies, the prayers whispered in darkness. And then almost seamlessly he began to show me where I had drifted. Not through accusation, but revelation. He said, "You have done much for me, but there were times you forgot to be with me." Those words pierced deeper than any judgment could. I realized that even in serving, even in ministry, I had sometimes lost the intimacy of simply knowing him. I had spoken about Jesus more often than I had spoken with him, and there he stood face to face, reminding me that relationship mattered more than results. His voice carried no condemnation. He didn't list my sins like an accuser. He revealed them like a healer showing a wound before applying the cure. Every truth he spoke was wrapped in grace. Every correction felt like an invitation back into love. It was as if he was saying, I didn't bring you here to punish you. I brought you here to restore you. And with a gentleness beyond words, he began touching the corners of my heart I thought were long buried. He spoke of loneliness, of the human ache for connection, and how even good people can seek comfort in the wrong places when the heart feels empty. He didn't shame me. He understood me, and that understanding was more powerful than any sermon I had ever preached. In that sacred moment, I realized his love confronts without crushing, corrects without condemning, and exposes not to humiliate, but to heal. And just as tears began to well in my eyes under the weight of that love, he looked at me with compassion beyond words and said, there is something more I want you to understand. About purity, about your heart, and about the hunger that so many carry in secret.